Kelly A. Scott 08 asks, does excess protein fuel cancer? Chris Wark says yes. Well, first off, I don't know who that is. And I don't care what any single person says about anything. You got to consult the literature. And even, experts on social media, I've seen say things that make it sound as though they are talking out of their beeholes. So, you got to, I think, take everything that you hear on social media with a grain of salt. Take everything that you hear on podcasts with a grain of salt. I mean, I think that we obviously try to be as rigorous as we possibly can over here without being long-winded and without making, endless caveats. We still want to keep things practical. But to answer the question, does excess protein fuel cancer? My opinion, my data-based perspective response to that question is no. The sources of the protein that you're ingesting does matter, though. There is a link between certain types of, the general consumption of processed meats and certain types of cancer. Mechanistically, I think we need more research to say for sure what degree of processing, what types of processing, if any, are actually causally related to an increased risk of carcinogenesis, because, meat processing is a continuum. Like ground beef is a form of processed meat. And I think ground beef is fantastic. You process food when you make it at home. Like when you slice an apple, you're processing the apple to some degree. So we can't dogmatically be tethered to these labels like processed equals bad. I certainly eat plenty of meats that might be considered processed. I have a very lean Belinsky's chicken sausage in my fridge right now that I enjoy. Like it's lean, high protein, low in fat, low in calories, doesn't have added nitrates in it. So I think that some processed meats can be totally great, totally easy and convenient way to hit your protein target. But then others, if we're talking like ballpark hot dogs or the types of meat used in Subway sandwiches, like, do I think that that's good for you? No, I would never say that. But is it the meat itself that's driving the increased risk of cancer seen in people who consume it regularly? Or is it the, what they're eating in the milieu of the diet and lifestyle of somebody who inevitably exists when a person routinely eats Subway sandwiches, or hot dogs from football, from baseball stadiums or whatever, fields, stadiums. These are all questions that need to be answered. But the protein itself, no, protein does not. I would not say that excess protein causes cancer. It's very hard to eat excess protein. What even is that? Because it's so satiating. We got to think about context. We got to think about dietary context. We got to think about the food matrix. We got to think about the degree of processing, the additives, and all that stuff. What else is in your diet? Are you eating ample fiber? Are you getting antioxidant phytonutrients? Are you eating primarily charred meat, or are you eating meat that's been more responsibly cooked? I mean, that's also something to think about. When you char meat, you're creating compounds on the surface of that meat that might in vitro show the potential to cause mutations that might lead to cancer. But, those are in vitro studies. Are you routinely eating that kind of meat? Are you eating that meat in the context of a diet that is low in fiber and deficient in antioxidant phytonutrients? Or are you eating occasional charred meat in the context of an antioxidant-rich diet that's fiber replete, and, maybe you marinate your meat in, there have been studies to show that when meat is marinated in garlic and onions, antioxidant-rich herbs and spices, that the production of those compounds is actually attenuated. There's evidence to suggest that when we coat our meat prior to cooking with olive oil, which is I love extra virgin olive oil. It's a genius food. When we use extra virgin olive oil to cook meat, that it blunts the formation of some of these nasty compounds like heterocyclic amines and AGEs and whatnot. Extra virgin olive oil, because it's so rich in antioxidants. So context is really everything. I would not say, if somebody is blanket on social media saying excess protein causes cancer, I would unfollow that person, because it's just like, we need more nuance, and all that's doing is creating food fear. And protein, again, is an incredibly important nutrient. It's a very important tool. Protein is a biological necessity, but beyond that, it's a very useful tool to fighting off obesity and overweight today because of just the context, the dietary, the food environment that we've inherited. So could you get by eating low protein like some do in less industrialized populations? Yeah, but they're eating lower protein diets in the context of a diet that's less processed. So they're eating more whole food sources of carbohydrates. Actually, the originators of the protein leverage hypothesis have talked about this, that, low protein isn't necessarily bad. It's just that low protein in the context of the standard American diet is bad because what are the foods that are constantly at arm's reach that we will then consume to defend our protein intake? They're ultra-processed foods. In the context of a diet like in Okinawa, Japan, if we tend to eat low protein, well, we're eating a lot. We're not eating high protein, but the foods that we're going to be eating instead are high in water, fiber, very satiating sources of carbohydrates. So, yeah, context is everything, and that's something that I hope you guys have, at least thus far, been able to glean from our work here together. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.